vanishing hitchhikers, crying ghost children begging for your help, a madman intentionally spreading AIDS to harm people. When you hear these things, you think of urban legends. And you'd be correct. Only these urban legends aren't from the United States of America or England or even the English-speaking world. They're from Pakistan.
What you are about to hear is believed to be real, based on witness accounts, testimonies, and public record. This is terrifying and true.
Nothing captures the imagination quite like the unexplainable. Perhaps that's why, despite the fear they evoke, stories of paranormal encounters continue to captivate so many people. In a country like Pakistan, where superstition and folklore are still gospel truth to a majority, everyone knows at least one person who has a tale, or two, to tell. Inhabited for millennia, Sukkur and the rest of Upper Sindh are full of such stories. I asked a friend of the show to compile some, just for us to listen to. And believe me, they are eerie, to say the least. And we'll be getting to those stories after these quick words from our sponsors. Whether it's the belief among those who live around Sukkur's Hindu dharamshala that a woman in black patrols the rooftop of a nearby building, or the numerous claims of hearing shrill shrieks at night while passing across many a deserted house, almost every town and city in Upper Sindh is full of such stories that many residents will swear actually happen. Some swear they saw a beheaded man walk along the road next to Eidgah, while others speak with fear of demonic encounters that have given certain buildings and spots a frightening reputation. As a result, even today, there are many properties in Sindh that are deserted because people believe they are occupied by supernatural entities. Take, for instance, an age-old building in Old Sukkur that has gained the name of Jinnat Building. Those who live nearby trade stories of horrific encounters that range from seeing lights in the building flick on and off by themselves to witnessing actual jinns or demons on its rooftop. As these stories passed on, for years, people would avoid going near the building for fear of being possessed or hurt by supernatural forces. However, 2 years ago, a property developer purchased and demolished the property, replacing it with a residential plaza. For now, at least, the scary stories seem to have gone away along with the building itself. Similarly, a 4-story pre-partition era building at Bunder Road, which translates roughly to Monkey Road, in Sukkur, is believed to be a dwelling place for paranormal beings. During a visit to the building, it was found that 2 floors were occupied by 3 families, but the 3rd and 4th floors were lying vacant. When the occupants of the building were asked why this was so, their answer was that these 2 floors are occupied by supernatural entities. They further said that neither we interfere in their area nor do they bother us. Thus, we live in harmony. Sounds pretty reasonable, albeit if it involves spirits of some sort. Every true Pakistani has heard the tale of the Karzaz Chiral once or more than once in their lifetime. The people of Karachi, the largest city in Pakistan, are more than excited to narrate the legend every time they cross the Karzaz Road. And every single time, it scares the life out of the listener. The story goes like this. A bride's groom died on the Karzaz Road. She was truly heartbroken by the incident and also passed away. Now legend has it that the bride still roams the streets where her husband allegedly died. The Karzaz Charail is referred to as a soul of a person who has died but cannot go to purgatory, is a story that started many rumors about the Karzaz area. Currently, social media is flooded with people claiming they've sighted ghosts in that specific area. The most famous sighting is of a child hanging from the window of uninhabited houses. Regardless, the most well-known ghost story and the real attraction of the Karzaz Road will always be the Karzaz Charail Bride. Another place in Karachi is called the Devil's Point. According to the legend, there have been many reports of voodoo, dark magic, and ghost sightings in that location. People have also claimed that they've seen a creepy and evil-looking man sitting on a chair in the water, chanting something evil. Those who have seen this man were always too apprehensive to approach him, their fear guiding them more than reason or curiosity. I know if I saw a scary old man floating in the water on a chair, making eerie chanting noises, I would probably run in the opposite direction, and I would definitely never look back. Then again, if I myself were in Pakistan, I don't know that I would ever go to a place that's known as Devil's Point. I think it's more likely I would want to just find a good place to eat. Not all of the legends of Pakistan that are terrifying are related to the supernatural or the paranormal. No, this terrifying story is about when people started to contract AIDS randomly. This infamous Pakistani urban legend that was circulated back in 1998 says that random victims who attended a crowded movie in a theater or nightclub would be injected with AIDS. There are so many chain letters that circulated all over the internet, and here is an example of just one. Please check your chairs when going to the movie theaters. An incident occurred when a friend's coworker went to sit in a chair and something was poking her. She then got up and found that it was a needle with a little note at the end. It said, "Welcome to the real world. You are HIV positive." To this day, the gang or person behind that sinister act is unknown, let alone if the occurrence was real or simply fodder for a dark chain letter. There were many similar stories of HIV being spread intentionally and with the goal to harm in the United States, but it's fascinating that Pakistan had its own version. Another Pakistani story that I remember hearing a version of as a young boy in the Midwest of the United States was the vanishing hitchhiker. This is a very common urban legend that exists in a bunch of other countries, especially the United Kingdom, Algeria, Korea, and Romania. The story goes like this. A young man is driving alone at night when all of a sudden he spots a beautiful woman on the side of the road who asks him for a ride. He picks her up and she tells him that she wants to go straight home. Once they begin driving, she falls asleep in the back seat. So when they get to her house, the man knocks on the door and tells the mother that he has her daughter in his car, who is fast asleep. But in a shocking turn, she tells the man that this can't be possible because her daughter has been dead for several years. When the man goes back to his car to check the back seat, all that remains are her clothes. There's no sign of the missing girl anywhere. This story I had never heard about until this compilation was created for the show. This is about the Hathora group, or the Hammer group. Karachi was developing back in the 1970s and 80s, and it was far from the metropolis it is today. In the late 1980s, the city of Karachi had an increase in murders, and they were all done in a very similar manner. At first, the police suspected that the killings were done by a sadistic serial killer. But then, the police began to theorize that the murders were actually done by a group of people who went out on a killing rampage of sorts. This group would supposedly break into your house, steal all your valuables, and then hammer you to death. This stirred up a lot of panic in the city, which caused all of its residents to hire guards and beef up their security. The last known case was reported in May of 1986, but no arrests were ever made, and the mystery of the Hathora group remains unsolved to this day. This next story is especially chilling. It's about 40 dead children. The tallest peak in the Chiltan Range is said to be haunted by the ghosts of 40-some dead children. According to this local urban legend, a couple left 40 babies on top of this peak to either survive on their own or die. Many have claimed that if you go to this peak at night, you can hear children crying out in sadness and begging you and pleading you to climb up the mountain and rescue them. The legend of Pichal Peri, roughly translated as back-footed. Chanting Pichal Peri gets the said creature to make an actual physical appearance. This demonic witch apparently takes on two forms. According to the more common version, she appears as a beautiful woman who targets vulnerable men. She is completely disguised, except for her feet, which point backwards. But in her true form, she is long-faced and scary-eyed, with dirty fingers, a hunchback, messy hair, and bloody clothes, and her still backward-pointing feet. According to one version, Pichal Peri kills people by ingesting their blood or ripping out their vital organs from their bodies. Our final example of first-hand Pakistani urban legends is the curse of Sudden Death Lodge, which is a tale of a Karachi-based pir whose tomb was taken care of by a naked fakir who sat there for over 50 years. Pre the 1947 partition, an affluent Parsi merchant decided to erect his bungalow on that same site. The fakir begged the merchant to reconsider his decision that would disturb the pir's resting place. Unmoved, the merchant proceeded with his plans, determined to raise the tomb and evict the fakir. The fakir cursed the merchant, saying the building would never serve the purpose, and died soon after. Construction work commenced, during which 3 builders and a chowkidar met mysterious deaths. The day the family moved in after completion of the construction, a nephew fell down the staircase and died on the spot. Several days later, their son fell off the railings, ruptured his spleen, and also died. The third, their grandson, caught a nail in his wrist that got infected and caused him death by sepsis. Later, the merchant himself met with a fatal accident. The house was then sold to the Rield family, whose manager suddenly died of cholera. Within a few short weeks, and in a bizarre twist of events, Mr. Rield slit his wife's throat in that house before taking his own life. Consequently, the mansion became known as Sudden Death Lodge and was razed in 1925. It remained a junkyard until the site was later chosen for Karachi's new U.S. Embassy. Construction began in September of 1957, but similar events were experienced. The mysterious death of an electrician at work. This was probably the first time in the U.S. State Department's history that it bowed to superstition, altering the principal architectural design and sparing the exact site of the peer's tomb. While there have been no further known deaths on and around the said location, it is believed that the curse continues to exist to this date, but in more subtle ways. Ghost stories and curses are more than just random folklore in Pakistan. Pakistan is an ancient place where legend often holds gospel truth to the masses. Remember that everyone knows that one person who has a tale or two to tell, and all of them know somebody who has personally experienced said urban legend. This episode definitely brought a lot of fascination to me. I've always loved those campfire stories and urban legends that we share under hushed breaths at slumber parties and late-night car rides. But to have some stories direct from Pakistan, a place that is very, very different than the United States, is very eye-opening. Because in reality, we're not so different after all. A lot of the stories we've heard here today, I've heard similar versions of in places like Ohio, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, Michigan, Indiana, and Kentucky. Maybe a few other states too, but those in particular, I've explored the folklore. I don't know what that says. Does that say that the paranormal is similar everywhere? Or that the human imagination and the mind's way of understanding things is a very human trait indeed? Remember, it doesn't matter if we grew up on separate sides of the earth with totally different religions, totally different societies, totally different entertainment, totally different folklore. We all end up just being human. And part of being human is being afraid of the things you don't understand, but also being fascinated with figuring it all out. After all, that's why you're here right now, right? You want to hear something terrifying that just might be true. So what do you think about these Pakistani stories? Terrifying and True is narrated by Enrique Couto. It's executive produced by Rob Fields, produced by Daniel Wilder, with original theme music by Ray Mattis. If you have a story you'd like us to cover on the program, send us an email at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. And if you want to support us in a very direct way, go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support us and allow us to keep the spooky rolling and rolling and rolling. And I want to say a big thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names at the end of the show. And they are Johnny Nix, Bobbletopia.com, Megan Hua, Julia Kirsch, Brent McCullough, Steve King, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time right here on Weekly Spooky and Terrifying and True.